stop scrolling for just a moment, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely change the way you think about attraction after 60. Forget everything you've been told about muscles, money, charm, or youth. Forget the cliches you've been chasing your whole life, because women over 60 are no longer looking at what you show, they are looking at what you carry. And if you don't understand this, you will spend decades wondering why the right woman never noticed you, why your efforts fall flat, why all the things you thought made you attractive suddenly don't matter. I'm not exaggerating when I say that most men completely miss this. They focus on appearances, gadgets, and superficial charm, while the qualities that truly make a man unforgettable are invisible. They exist beneath the surface, in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you inhabit the room without needing to dominate it. They are in your calmness, your boundaries, your presence, and the way your life experiences have shaped you into someone women instinctively trust and desire. By the end of this video, you will know the exact body parts, not the ones you think, but the ones that really matter, that make women over 60 drawn to a man like nothing else can. You will understand why men half your age could never compete, and why your age is not a weakness. It is your greatest advantage. If you are ready to stop chasing illusions, to stop trying to perform for attention, and to finally understand the hidden, powerful psychology that makes a man unforgettable, then you cannot afford to click away. Watch closely. Every second matters. By the time this video ends, you will see yourself, and how women see you, in a completely new light. Most men misunderstand attraction after 60 because they are still using a framework that belonged to their 20s and 30s. They believe attraction is something you perform, something you prove, something you display, and that misunderstanding quietly destroys their power, because at this stage of life, attraction is no longer physical currency, it is psychological gravity. Women do not wake up at this age searching for excitement the way they once did. They wake up searching for relief. Relief from chaos, relief from emotional volatility, relief from men who need to be managed, reassured, or emotionally babysat. So when a man over 60 walks into a room carrying calm instead of hunger, certainty instead of insecurity, he instantly stands apart, not because he is louder or more impressive, but because his nervous system is settled. This is the shift most men never make. Attraction is no longer about stimulation. It is about regulation. A woman who has lived understands this instinctively. She has felt what it's like to be around men whose emotions were unstable, whose confidence was borrowed, whose masculinity needed constant validation, and she has paid for it. So when she encounters a man who does not need to convince her of his worth, her body responds before her mind does, because the body recognizes safety faster than logic ever could. That is why attraction becomes psychological. It moves beneath the surface. A man over 60 who is still chasing approval feels exhausting, even if he is charming, even if he is successful, even if he looks younger than his age, because neediness has a frequency, and women hear it immediately. On the other hand, a man who has accepted his age, his limits, and his place in the world emits a quiet authority, not dominance. Authority. And there is a profound difference between the two. Authority comes from self-containment, from knowing who you are without asking the room for permission. This is why women are no longer attracted to potential. They are attracted to integration. To men whose experiences have been processed, not projected. To men who don't use women to fill emotional gaps left by unresolved wounds. A man who has done that inner work may not talk about it, but it shows. In how he listens, in how he responds instead of reacts, in how little he needs to explain himself. Psychologically, this creates something rare, emotional gravity. Women lean toward men who feel like an anchor, not a wave, men who don't spike her nervous system but steady it. This is not boring. This is deeply erotic in a mature way, because desire is not always about intensity. Often it is about trust. And trust is built through consistency of being, not bursts of performance. Philosophically, this stage of attraction is about coherence, the alignment between what a man thinks, what he says, and how he lives. Younger attraction tolerates fragmentation, older attraction does not. A woman can sense when a man's words outpace his character. She can feel when confidence is manufactured rather than embodied, and she will quietly disengage, not because she is cruel, but because her time is precious. This is where men get confused. They think they are being rejected for aging. In reality, they are being filtered for incongruence. A man who has lived well wears time differently. His body may slow, but his presence expands. He is no longer chasing moments, he is shaping environments. He does not seek excitement, he offers clarity. And clarity is intoxicating to a woman who has spent years navigating emotional ambiguity. Attraction becomes less about what a man can do and more about who he can be with. Can he sit in silence without discomfort? Can he hold space without trying to fix? Can he disagree without withdrawing love or respect? These are the questions women are unconsciously asking now. And a man who answers them with his behavior, not his words, becomes deeply compelling. This is why younger men often misjudge older men's appeal. They assume attraction fades because visibility fades. But true attraction doesn't need visibility. It operates through resonance. A man whose inner world is ordered creates order around him. Conversations become calmer. Decisions feel clearer. Even conflict feels safer. That is not accidental. That is psychological leadership. And leadership is attractive. Not leadership in the sense of control, but in the sense of emotional direction. A man who knows where he stands invites others to stand more securely around him. He doesn't pull a woman toward him, he gives her a place to rest. So when men ask what women love after 60, the real answer is not a body part at all. It is the absence of inner chaos. It is emotional sobriety. It is the feeling that life with this man would be simpler, not heavier. More grounded, not more dramatic. This does not happen by accident. It is the result of choosing responsibility over ego, reflection over blame, and growth over repetition. It requires letting go of the fantasy of being desired for youth and embracing the reality of being desired for depth. And here is the truth most men avoid. If you do not become psychologically attractive, no amount of physical effort will save you. But if you do become psychologically grounded, your age becomes irrelevant. In fact, it becomes an advantage. Because maturity, when integrated, does not diminish desire, it concentrates it. The men who understand this stop chasing attraction and start embodying it. And when that happens, women don't feel pursued, they feel invited. And that is the difference between being noticed and being chosen. So reflect on this carefully. The most attractive thing you can become now is not younger, louder, or more impressive. It is more settled, more honest, and more whole. And once you choose that path, attraction stops being something you seek and becomes something that naturally finds you. The second truth about attraction after 60 is often misunderstood, even by men who think they have figured it out. It is not strength, not charm, not accomplishments. It is calm presence, the ability to be grounded in a world that constantly demands urgency. The way a man moves, the way he speaks, the way he simply exists. This is what women notice long before they notice anything else. It is subtle, but it is unmistakable. It is an invisible force that signals security, confidence, and emotional maturity all at once. Think about it. How often do women encounter men who are reactive, who feel compelled to fill every silence with noise, who rush to prove their worth in every interaction? That behavior used to pass as charm in youth. In later life, it feels exhausting. It signals insecurity more than power. It signals neediness more than confidence. Women, especially those who have lived, do not have the patience for illusions anymore. They sense what is real. They sense stability. They sense presence. Presence begins with the eyes. Eyes are not just windows to the soul. They are mirrors of experience and intention. A man over 60 whose eyes are calm, who looks without judgment, who observes without needing to intervene, communicates volumes without a single word. Women feel it immediately. The eyes tell them, I am here, fully, without pretense. I do not need your approval, but I honor your presence. That simple communication, silent as it may be, is more attractive than any line, any gesture, any superficial display. Voice is equally revealing, and this is where most men fail to understand the power they carry simply by speaking differently. A man over 60 does not need to shout, to dominate, or to speak faster than the room will allow. Women respond to a voice that is measured, calm, deliberate. A voice that carries certainty, not arrogance. It is not about volume. It is not about sounding younger or more virile. It is about rhythm, pacing, and resonance. A measured voice demonstrates self-possession. It signals a man who has no need to convince, no need to compete. And women recognize this as profoundly magnetic. Posture and movement also carry messages women feel before they even consciously process them. The way a man sits, stands, and walks can communicate more than any conversation. Does he occupy his space with ease, or does he shrink as if he must constantly defend it? Does he move with confidence, or does every step reveal hesitation? Women, after decades of observing and navigating human behavior, are finally attuned to these signals. A calm, grounded posture communicates that this man is secure in himself and in his environment. That security, silent and unspoken, is infinitely more compelling than any attempt to show off. Calm presence is also about the relationship a man has with silence. Many men feel uncomfortable with pauses, with stillness, with moments where they are not directing or performing. Women, however, understand that true strength is not in constant action, but in the ability to inhabit silence without fear. A man who can be still, who can listen without interrupting, who can simply exist alongside another person without the need to fill every space with words, demonstrates a form of confidence that cannot be faked. This is why older women, in particular, are drawn to calm men. They no longer desire constant excitement. They desire steadiness. They desire a presence that feels like a refuge, not a challenge. Psychologically, this is why calm presence translates into deep attraction. It signals emotional regulation. It signals resilience. It signals that this man has experienced life, faced disappointment, and not been undone. Women instinctively respond to these traits because they indicate a partner who can weather life's uncertainties without causing additional turmoil. They are not attracted to the drama, they are attracted to mastery over it. And calm presence is mastery in its purest, most understated form. Consider how this contrasts with younger forms of attraction. In youth, excitement, unpredictability, and intensity can create infatuation. But with experience, infatuation is insufficient. Older women seek reliability, clarity, and emotional steadiness. A man who can be present in the moment without anxiety, without distraction, without the compulsion to impress, is extraordinarily rare. That rarity alone makes him captivating. He becomes a focal point not because he demands attention, but because he commands it by simply existing without urgency. Calm presence also shapes interactions in ways men often overlook. Conversations flow differently around a man who is grounded. Decisions are made more clearly. Conflicts are handled with less friction. The energy he brings into a room shifts the atmosphere subtly but unmistakably. Women feel this energy at a subconscious level. They feel relief, they feel safety, they feel trust. And trust, after decades of life, becomes far more powerful than attraction based on superficial qualities. Presence is not just about avoiding chaos, it is about creating space for others. A man over 60 who has presence does not overshadow, he does not dominate, he does not demand the spotlight. Instead, he allows women and those around him to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel safe expressing themselves. This generosity of presence is magnetic because it is rare. Many men at this age believe that they must continue to perform, to assert, to prove. But the men who truly attract do the opposite. They remove themselves as a source of tension and allow others to engage freely, creating a dynamic that is deeply compelling without being forced. Philosophically, presence is about self-containment. It is about knowing who you are without needing constant affirmation from the outside world. A man who is present understands his limitations, his strengths, and his values. He does not require validation because he has already reconciled with himself. Women sense this completeness instantly. It is a subtle, profound form of attraction that operates beneath the surface, bypassing superficial judgments and appealing directly to intuition and emotion. The most striking element of calm presence is its contrast with the chaos most people carry. In a world that is loud, fast, and fragmented, a man who is centered stands out simply by being steady. Women are drawn to him not because he is flashy, not because he is perfect, but because he is the opposite of what they have had to navigate for so long. That contrast, when genuine, is irresistible. It is important to understand that cultivating this presence is not passive. It requires deliberate attention to oneself, mindfulness, emotional awareness, and the ability to regulate reactions. It requires rejecting the habit of performing constantly for approval and instead inhabiting one's own authority internally. It requires choosing to respond rather than react. And while this may sound simple, it is profoundly difficult because it asks a man to confront decades of conditioning that equated attention with worth and chaos with vitality. But the payoff is immense. A man who embodies calm presence does not need to chase attention. Women notice him before he speaks, before he acts, before he tries. His presence is felt. It creates comfort, desire, and admiration simultaneously. It is the kind of attraction that endures because it is rooted not in superficiality, but in authenticity, not in performance, but in being. So, let this be clear: if you are over 60 and searching for attraction, do not look to improve what is visible. Do not try to impress, to perform, or to compete. Instead, cultivate your inner stillness, refine your presence, speak deliberately, move consciously, sit with silence, observe without judgment, stand without tension, be grounded in yourself, and in doing so, create a gravitational force that draws others naturally. Because attraction at this stage is no longer about being seen. It is about being felt. And the men who are most felt, who carry themselves with quiet authority, and who bring calm into every interaction, are the men who become unforgettable. Reflect on this. The power you have now is not in what you do, but in how you exist. In the depth of your calm, the certainty of your voice, the steadiness of your posture, and the intentionality of your movements. When you master that, you do not chase desire. You embody it, and women will not just notice, they will respond. The third truth about attraction after 60 is rarely spoken, and most men are completely blind to it. It is not charm, it is not wealth, it is not even confidence in the way society usually defines it. The most magnetic quality at this stage is boundaries. Yes, boundaries. The lines a man draws in his life, the limits he respects, and the space he maintains for himself and others. This is the kind of attraction that cannot be faked. Women notice it immediately, often before a single word is exchanged, and they respond to it in ways men seldom understand. Boundaries are the quiet framework of emotional power. They tell women, without explanation, that a man has integrity, self-respect, and discipline. Boundaries are not walls, they are structures of trust. When a man over 60 moves through life with boundaries intact, he communicates something profound. I am whole. I do not require constant validation. I know who I am and I honor that person. That statement, silent as it may be, resonates deeply with women who have spent decades navigating emotional ambiguity, manipulation, and uncertainty. Consider hands, for example. Hands reveal far more than most men realize. They reveal intent. They reveal restraint. A man who does not fidget, who does not grab, who does not reach where he is not invited, demonstrates that he understands the value of space, his own and others. Women sense this immediately. They sense that this man has practiced self-control over the years, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It is subtle, it is understated, yet it speaks volumes. Hands that are grounded, that rest confidently, that are used intentionally, communicate calm authority and respect in ways that words cannot. Boundaries extend beyond physical gestures. They are embedded in voice, in tone, in the way a man engages in conversation. A man who speaks without demanding attention, who listens without interrupting, who responds without needing to dominate, is a man with boundaries. He understands that his voice has weight not because it overwhelms others, but because it communicates clarity and restraint. Women notice this immediately. They feel relief around him. They sense that they are not being pulled into drama or chaos, and that sense of emotional safety is irresistible. Boundaries also manifest in posture and presence. A man over 60 who is grounded does not overreach. He does not compensate for perceived inadequacies with aggression or showmanship. He does not shrink to avoid challenge or scrutiny. Instead, he occupies his space with quiet confidence, aware of his value, but not obsessed with displaying it. Women, particularly those who have lived and learned, are finely attuned to this. They respond to the equilibrium he offers, to the stability he embodies, and to the clarity he projects without effort. This is the kind of attraction that transcends physicality. Boundaries are, in essence, the framework of emotional intelligence. They communicate a man's understanding of himself and his world. They show that he can manage relationships without losing his center, that he can say no when necessary and yes with intention, that he can protect his energy while honoring the energy of others. A woman, after decades of living, unconsciously registers these qualities. She senses that this man is not easily manipulated, not easily distracted, not easily unsettled, and that stability, invisible yet tangible, is deeply compelling. Many men over 60 misunderstand this completely. They think they must be generous to the point of overextension, available to the point of exhaustion, or charming to the point of performance. But women at this stage are not impressed by availability without discernment. They are not impressed by generosity that comes with compromise of self. They are not impressed by performance that lacks authenticity. In fact, those traits often repel them because they signal instability or insecurity. Boundaries, on the other hand, are magnetic because they signal a man who has mastered himself. And mastery at this age is far more attractive than superficial displays of capability. Boundaries also influence emotional communication. A man with clear boundaries can hold a woman's emotions without becoming entangled in them. He can empathize without absorbing, listen without reacting impulsively, and support without controlling. Women unconsciously measure this capacity. They feel it in their nervous system. They feel whether a man's boundaries protect both of them or whether they collapse under pressure. And the difference is palpable. Men without boundaries often appear chaotic or needy. Men with boundaries appear strong, reliable, and profoundly attractive. Philosophically, boundaries are a reflection of self-respect. They are an acknowledgement of one's own worth and a refusal to compromise it for external approval. Women sense this, not because it is announced, but because it is embodied. They sense it in the way a man handles his time, his attention, his energy, and his commitments. They sense it in the way he treats others without sacrificing his own integrity. And they respond to it unconsciously with attraction because it communicates safety, stability, and authenticity, qualities that are rare, even in younger men. It is important to note that boundaries are not rigid walls. They are not defensiveness. They are not avoidance. A man over 60 with boundaries does not isolate himself. He does not withhold affection or connection. Instead, he creates a framework in which connection can thrive safely. He is available on his terms, and that availability is infinitely more compelling than constant, indiscriminate attention. Women recognize that this is a man who can love without losing himself, who can give without being depleted, and who can engage without fear or compromise. That dynamic, invisible as it may seem, is magnetic. Boundaries are also a form of psychological honesty. They communicate what a man values and what he will not tolerate. A man who embodies boundaries does not manipulate, deceive, or cajole. He simply lives according to his principles, and those principles act as a magnet for women who are searching for clarity and trust. After decades of navigating relationships where motives were often hidden or unclear, women unconsciously gravitate toward men whose intentions are transparent, whose limits are respected, and whose interactions are safe and predictable. This is the essence of attraction after 60. What makes boundaries so powerful is that they do not require explanation. They are felt, they are observed, they resonate at a deep, unconscious level. A woman may not be able to articulate why she is drawn to a man, but she senses the stability, restraint, and clarity that his boundaries provide. That sense of security is irresistible, precisely because it contrasts with the chaos, drama, and instability she has learned to avoid. This is why older attraction often seems counterintuitive to men. It is not about doing more. It is about doing less with intention. It is not about performing. It is about restraining. It is not about pleasing everyone. It is about being consistent, intentional, and clear. Boundaries create a framework for this kind of attraction. They signal to women that this man has mastered himself, and mastery after 60 is far more compelling than youth, muscle, or superficial charm. So reflect on this carefully. If you want to be truly magnetic after 60, focus less on what you can show and more on what you can protect. Protect your energy. Protect your clarity. Protect your principles. Protect the space around you and the boundaries that define who you are. Women will feel this. They will sense it. And that sense, deeper than words or gestures, will make you unforgettable. Because attraction at this stage is not about doing more. It is about being more. And being more means knowing your limits, standing firm within them, and moving through life with self-respect and intention. That is the kind of power that cannot be taken away. That is the kind of attraction that lasts. That is the kind of presence women instinctively recognize, respect, and desire. Boundaries are not just rules. They are a declaration. A man who embodies them does not chase love. He invites it. He does not impress others. He impresses himself. And that difference, subtle, profound, and undeniable, is what transforms attraction after 60 from something superficial into something extraordinary. The final truth about attraction after 60 is the one that shocks most men because it is completely counterintuitive. It is not the body, not the accomplishments, not the charm, or even the wealth. It is presence, pure, undeniable presence. And I am not speaking about charisma or performance. I am speaking about the kind of presence that is felt before it is seen, heard, or understood. The kind of presence that communicates to a woman, without a single word, that this man is whole, grounded, and unforgettable. Presence is the culmination of everything we have spoken about so far. It is the integration of calm authority, boundaries, and emotional regulation. Presence is not something you can manufacture through effort or techniques. It is not something that comes from trying to impress or perform. Presence is the natural outcome of a life lived with intention, awareness, and integrity. It is the magnetic force that exists when a man has reconciled with himself, his past, his limitations, and his strengths. Women notice presence immediately. They do not always consciously know why, but they feel it in their nervous system. A man with presence occupies space without needing to dominate it. He speaks without needing to command attention. He moves without rushing. He listens without judgment, and he responds with clarity instead of reacting impulsively. That energy, subtle as it may seem, is irresistible. It communicates safety, security, and depth. It tells a woman that she does not need to manage him, correct him, or validate him. She simply feels relief. This is why presence becomes far more attractive than any physical trait. A man over 60 may no longer have the chiseled muscles of his youth, the stamina, or the superficial polish. And yet, he can be the most desirable man in the room because of the way he exists. His presence carries weight not because it is loud or showy, but because it is authentic and steady. Women are drawn to it instinctively. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to their subconscious, to the part of them that knows what matters after decades of life experience. Presence is also about consistency. A man who is present does not fluctuate with every external circumstance. He does not let moods, pressures, or opinions dictate his demeanor. Instead, he remains grounded, steady, and reliable. Women recognize this immediately. They feel the difference between a man who is anchored and one who is adrift. And after a lifetime of uncertainty and emotional labor, they are drawn to the anchor. They are drawn to the man who can exist fully without demanding that they fix, guide, or chase him. Presence is strengthened by awareness. A man who is present knows himself. He understands his emotions, his desires, and his limits. He has done the internal work that most men avoid. He does not need to react to every stimulus or prove his worth in every interaction. Instead, he inhabits his own mind and body with calm authority. This awareness extends to his interactions with others. He listens deeply, responds intentionally, and creates an environment in which others feel seen, heard, and respected. That kind of presence is rare, and rarity is attractive. Women are particularly sensitive to this type of presence because they have often spent decades navigating men who lacked it. They have experienced instability, inconsistency, and emotional unavailability. They have learned to read between the lines, to sense insecurity, and to detect chaos. When they encounter a man whose presence signals calm, certainty, and groundedness, it is shocking, not because it is exaggerated or flashy, but because it is authentic and unusual. Presence communicates mastery over self, and mastery over self is deeply compelling. Presence is also about how a man handles his own energy and space. He does not need to occupy every conversation, dominate every decision, or control every interaction. Instead, he moves through the world in a way that respects both himself and others. He allows room for women to express themselves without fear of judgment or manipulation. He engages without desperation, and he observes without interference. This combination of restraint and engagement creates a gravitational pull that women feel instantly. The philosophical depth of presence lies in its reflection of a man's inner life. Presence is the visible expression of integration, the alignment of thought, emotion, and action. A man with presence is not fragmented. He does not say one thing and feel another. He does not react impulsively or inconsistently. He embodies coherence, and coherence is magnetic. Women sense this coherence at a level that bypasses superficial judgments. They feel it in the way he moves, the way he speaks, and the way he listens. It resonates with something deep inside them that longs for stability, authenticity, and connection. Presence also communicates choice. A man who is present chooses how he engages with the world. He chooses which battles to fight, which words to speak, and which moments to occupy. This intentionality is seductive because it signals that he is not driven by fear, ego, or compulsion. He is driven by clarity, awareness, and purpose. Women, especially those who have lived and learned, are drawn to men who operate from choice rather than impulse because it reflects strength, wisdom, and emotional intelligence. Many men mistake presence for dominance or control. They think that in order to attract, they must be larger than life, louder than everyone else, or more commanding than the room itself. But the truth is the opposite. Presence is quiet. It is steady. It is invisible until it is felt. It is not about overpowering. It is about creating an atmosphere in which others feel safe, respected, and understood. That kind of presence is rare, and rarity is irresistible. Presence also transcends the physical. It is not about appearance, fitness, or performance. Women notice when a man's body is aligned with his mind, when his movements are deliberate rather than reactive, when his energy communicates calm and confidence rather than desperation or performance. These signals are subtle, but they register instantly. A woman may not consciously analyze them, but she feels them, and those feelings drive attraction in ways that no superficial attribute ever could. To cultivate presence, a man must prioritize himself. He must engage in reflection, mindfulness, and emotional regulation. He must confront the parts of himself that are unsettled, unresolved, or reactive. He must choose to operate from a place of calm authority rather than compulsion or need. And he must commit to inhabiting his own space and energy fully, without relying on others to validate or define him. Presence is the reward of that inner work, and it is profoundly attractive. When a man embodies presence, women do not feel pursued, they feel invited. They do not feel pressured, they feel safe. They do not feel manipulated, they feel valued. Presence creates an atmosphere in which connection naturally occurs and attraction deepens without effort. It is subtle, powerful, and lasting. It is the final ingredient that ties together all the other qualities we have discussed: calmness, authority, boundaries, and emotional intelligence. Presence transforms them from admirable traits into a force that is deeply magnetic. So let this truth sink in. The most attractive thing a man over 60 can develop is not youth, muscle, charm, or money. It is presence. Presence is earned through life, through reflection, through discipline, and through authenticity. Presence is not performed, it is embodied. It is felt long before it is noticed. It creates safety, desire, and admiration simultaneously, and it makes a man unforgettable in ways that superficial attributes never can. Reflect on this carefully. Presence is not something you add to yourself. It is the natural result of a life lived with intention, honesty, and self-mastery. If you want to be magnetic, focus less on performing and more on being. Align your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Stand grounded. Speak with clarity. Listen deeply, intentionally. Occupy your space without dominating it. Create a gravitational energy that draws women naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully. Because in the end, attraction after 60 is not about what you look like. It is about how you exist. And the men who understand this, who cultivate presence above all else, do not chase attention. They embody it. They do not seek desire. They radiate it. And that is how a man becomes truly unforgettable.